Previously on Slay. Magda used her healing talents to dress Lincoln's bar fight wounds, but it will take him a bit of time to fully heal. Billy, Ariella, Magda, and Lincoln are at a dead end in search for Delilah Droman. With no leads and less hope, is it time to give up? If so, Delilah herself didn't get that memo. She's put her escape plan into play, and what a dangerous plan it is. Can she maneuver her way out of Teddy Two Fingers' clutches? Find out next on Slay, episode 64. Delilah Droman lugged the wicker basket down the corridor. She could have used one of the carts, but she needed information from the basket itself, and, as with most things meshwork related, touching something created far more of a connection than just looking at it. Inside the basket, the horrid creature within began to stir, slowly awakening as the freezer's cold ebbed from its skin and its multitudinous knobby knuckles. She carried it to the cell of Jacob Walton. Outside that cell, leaning against the door, arms crossed, Teddy Two Fingers waited. "My industrious little foreman," he said. "Is that the last gaunt?" Teddy did that thing grown-ups did more often than not. Ask someone younger a question to which they already knew the answer. Why they did this, Delilah did not know. "Yes, boss," she said. "When do we get more?" "Agnetha says a new batch will be here within the week. You need to pace yourself. I'd rather have consistent output of 95% than a batch of 98 to 99 followed by 4 days of nothing." What an asshole. Before Delilah, if he'd gotten 1 day of 90% plus, he would have been thrilled. Delilah hated this man. She'd thought she hated things before, like homework or annoying teachers or sometimes even her father. But she now realized, back then, she'd had no idea what hate was. She knew now. "So you want me to do worse," she said. "Do I have that right?" His dismissive glare reminded her that she'd won his tolerance, but not his respect. She was nothing more than a tool to him. "There's more to this business than you know," he said. "Do as you're told, and you'll keep me happy." An unhappy Teddy meant an unhappy Delilah. Some things went without saying. "I looked into what you told me about the Radu girl's father," Teddy said. "He had a weaving shop factory in the cow dye slice of the patchwork. Sold it to Breezy Bajeezy. Word is, it was an all-gold deal. I'm considering ransoming her." Delilah felt a flush of hope and of anxiety. The plan was in play. But there was more to the plan. Much more. She would only get one chance. She had to push the right buttons. I don't want you to ransom her," she said. Teddy's mouth pursed into a pucker. He needed some chapstick. "Now you don't want her ransomed?" he said. "Why is that?" Delilah set the basket on the stone floor. From inside came an irritated scratch of fingernails on wicker. As little as a month ago, a noise like that, and knowing what caused it, would have made her run screaming. Not anymore. This awful trial had hardened her. "I gave up too soon," she said. "I can get the Radu girl to 95%. I know I can." Teddy's mouth pursed, relaxed, stretched into a small smile. One sec, guys. Got some noise downstairs. Sorry. Here we go. Back at it. Teddy's pursed mouth relaxed, stretched into a small smile. Bemused. That was the word. She bemused him. And how will you do that? I'm changing her nightmare, Delilah said. You can see for yourself, right after I apply this gaunt. Delilah was going for the last of her father's 5 rules of negotiating the Droman way. In particular, rule number 4. Their weakness is your gift. Use it against them without mercy. Teddy had several weaknesses, but as far as Delilah could tell, one dominated above all others. This I want to see, he said. Change the gaunt, then show me. Lincoln slept atop the beer pong table. On the couch, Magda snored. Dragon, curled up in the crook of her legs, snored a bit louder than her. Ariella had gone to bed. Billy hit pause on Sisu, a damn fine action flick. In the movie, some Nazis were about to get fucked up. Billy liked movies where Nazis got fucked up because Nazis, all Nazis, past, present, and future, very much deserved to get fucked up. He glanced at Link, still out like a light. Billy stood, slowly and quietly, so as not to wake Dragon, and went to the dorm fridge on Magda's side of the couch. He had changed so much in such a short time. Not just in the physical sense, because being 6'4" and 200 bills was way better than being 5'4" and $1.20 soaking wet, but also in the emotional sense. For so long, he'd had only one person he could rely on. Now, he had 4. He relied on them, and they were starting to rely on him. That meant everything. He'd learned how to fight. While mesh training sessions had tapered off, combat training had not. It seemed every day he bore a new bruise courtesy of Magda or Lincoln's unforgiving instruction. Could he go toe-to-toe with either of them? Not even close. Not yet. But if he had put his new size and skills up against, say, Butch, Money Monday, or Big Hack, Billy knew he would have whipped any of those bullies. Maybe even all 3 at once. Knowing how to fight brought a confidence he had never known. And that confidence was separate from his power, his growing power. He'd only scratched the surface of what he could do. Hell, he'd already done things he didn't know how to do. He'd just done them. Billy Middleton was not the scrawny, smart-mouthed kid from T-Wood anymore. Okay, well, he still had the smart mouth, but everything else had changed. Those changes led to new beliefs. He believed Grandma loved him, although he did not believe she had done the right thing by him. He believed Dragon was a good soul, despite the fact that the girl had killed a whole bunch of people right in front of him. He believed anything Ariella Goldsmith said she could do, she could do. He believed that Magda, Lincoln, and Dragon accepted him for who he was, that they would do anything for him, risk their lives for him, maybe even die for him. And Billy believed one more thing. He believed he and his friends would get a chance to help Delilah Droman. He didn't know why he believed this. In the face of Magda and Link's experience with Teddy, the fact that Kelly's Droman couldn't find the man, the fact that the Bastion couldn't find Teddy, and that the only clues available were so insignificant there was no way to pursue them, Billy still believed. There would be a chance to help the kid. And when it came, Billy needed Lincoln Franks sober and ready to fight. Billy quietly opened the fridge. 2 beers, a half bottle of Yukon Jack. He removed them all, quietly shut the fridge, then tiptoed to the kitchen. In that fridge, 2 bottles of wine, a 6er of canned champagne, and a 5th of Red Star vodka. That was Magda's. She would be pissed, but this was an all-or-nothing effort. When Billy had been in the 6th grade, he, Money Monday, Butch, and Joe had removed all booze from Money's house. Money had wanted his dad to stop drinking. It hadn't worked, and Money had received a beating to end all beatings, but it had been worth a shot. Billy drained all the cans and bottles into the kitchen sink. He rinsed them out to remove any smell, then put them in the recycling bin. Lincoln might still have some alcohol hidden in his room. First the booze. Then, when Lincoln woke, they would have the talk. Delilah manifested the metaphorical curtain that separated the real world from the dream world. Oops. Start that over. Delilah manifested the metaphorical curtain that separated the real world from the dream realm. She stepped through, making sure to grunt a little bit, to stumble a little bit. Subtle reminders to Teddy that Delilah was still new to all of this, that she barely knew what she was doing. That couldn't be farther from the truth. Delilah had taken to the dream realm like she'd been born and raised in it. Maybe Teddy saw that. Maybe he didn't. But he was a man. And if there was one thing men wanted to see in girls, it was weakness. Frail little girls, made of sugar and spice and everything nice. Rule number 1. Tell them what they want to hear. Let them see what they want to see. Teddy followed her into the dream realm. Delilah found herself in the curved blacktop of Radu's driveway. There was the black Bentley. There was Bogdan Radu, half in and half out of it. There was Gabby, crying and snotting, crawling in slow motion toward her father, trying to reach him before a giant, macabre spider made of emeralds sank its fangs into his chest. "This is the same scene," Teddy said. "You told me you were trying—" "Be quiet," Delilah snapped. "Maybe this is easy for you, but I need to concentrate." Just the right amount of irritation and bitchiness juxtaposed against a wheedling tone that said, "I'm not as good at this as you are." "By all means," Teddy said. "Impress me." He was starting to like her. Delilah could tell. Haimana already did. Good. The more they believed, the better Delilah's chances of pulling this off. Gabriella screamed for her father to wake up. The emerald spider crept closer. And then the wrought iron gate swung inward into the unfocused nothingness that frames all dreams. Through that gate stepped the man in gray, his ragged cloak flowing, a sword in his gauntleted hand, a bubbling haze obscuring his eyes and stretching outward like the horns of an intangible smoke demon. Teddy grabbed Delilah's arm. "You stupid bitch," he said. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Delilah could have had Dream Lincoln use his Viking hatchet, but she knew it had been the sword that took off 2 of Teddy's fingers. "Just watch," she said. "Just watch." Teddy bristled. He released her arm. "Gabby," Dream Lincoln said, "it's all right. I'm here to save you and your father both." He sounded so heroic. Gabby got to her knees, clasped her hands in front of her. "Lord Jesus, thank you," she said, tears streaming. "A savior, thank you." Delilah didn't know if Gabby knew who Lincoln was. If not, it didn't really matter. Dream Lincoln certainly looked the part of the hero coming in to save the day. Lincoln strode toward the spider. The emerald monster scurried toward him. Lincoln raised his sword and slashed down. With a steel-on-stone crunch, the blade cut through two of the spider's legs. Gabby let out a shriek of triumph, of pent-up rage finally released in victory. A primal emotion, one driven from deep within human DNA, from the time before mankind had words and each day was a fight for survival, for tribal triumphs that meant your people would survive at least a little bit longer. Teddy flicked his tuning trident. Delilah hadn't seen him conjure it. "Fear down to 11%, he said. "Joy is up, dominance is up. I can't sell this garbage. You're wasting my time, Foreman." That was true. She was wasting his time. But the setup was part of the performance. Now to deliver. "Watch this," Delilah said. Lincoln Franks stepped in for the kill. The emerald spider reared up, tucked its bulbous abdomen between its rear legs. Glistening, faceted, green spinnerets shot forth a stream of white silk, silk that hit Lincoln and knocked him to the pavement, where he stuck fast. The spider's two severed legs grew back. Eight-legged once again, the jeweled arachnid crawled toward the entangled former Rixator. "Get up!" Gabby screamed. "Get up!" Lincoln tried, but he could not rise. He managed to partially free one hand. He stretched it toward Gabby. The haze, half hiding his face, vanished. With fear-filled eyes, he looked toward Gabby. "Help me," he said. "Please, help me." The spider closed in. Emerald fangs sank deep into Lincoln's eyes. Gabby screamed. She screamed, and she screamed some more. Teddy's tuning trident thrummed. "Incredible," he said. "Her fear jumped to 85%. Feelings of doom, those are at 65%. Teddy wasn't angry anymore. He was enjoying himself. Delilah knew how much he hated the man who had lopped off two of his fingers. Watching Lincoln Franks die, even in a child's nightmare, was his idea of a good time. Delilah's dream phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket. A name flashed at the top of the screen. Jai Yong Woo. Delilah swiped right. New meters appeared with Woo's name at the bottom. Fear, 92%, and heartbreak, 63%. Teddy's face furrowed in confusion. What are you doing?" "Hold on," Delilah said. "I gotta take this." She tapped Woo's name. Even as the emerald spider drained blood and brains from Lincoln's thrashing body, even as Gabby screamed so violently flecks of blood shot from her mouth, a new nightmare appeared on Delilah's right. A Chinese boy, only 9 years old, trying to swim out into the ocean to save a young Siberian husky. Waves breaking over its soaked head, its paws slapping futilely at the water. "Two dreams at once," Teddy said, his voice thin. How are you doing this? We're not even in Woo's cell." For the first time, Teddy didn't sound like he was in control. Delilah knew Woo's nightmare. Teddy had shown it to her. Teddy had made the dog slip under the surface before Woo could reach it, had smiled when Woo, barely able to keep his own head above water, screamed for the dog to keep swimming. In this iteration, though, Woo looked like he would reach his pup in time. "Drown the dog," Teddy said. "We need 95%. What Teddy really needed, Delilah hoped he would soon get. And for what she was doing to Gabby, for what she was doing to Woo, to all the other children, what did she deserve? Gabby and Woo were both having dreams within dreams, something Delilah was sure Teddy hadn't picked up on. Perhaps that level of separation made it easier for Gabby and for Woo. Delilah wasn't entirely sure. But for her, this wasn't an insulated, distant thing. Delilah was in the here and now. Delilah was the one pulling the strings. Delilah was the one doing these wicked, wicked things. Hating herself, reviling herself, Delilah Droman did what she had to do. Ji-young-woo, exhausted, reached for the dog. The dog attacked him, biting at his face, sharp teeth shredding flesh. "Oh, God damn," Teddy said. That's... Somehow, Delilah knew she had leveled up. She had taken a nightmare to a place even Teddy wouldn't take it. She was scaring Teddy. Woo screamed, tried to push the dog away as the water around them turned red. The dog bit down on Woo's hand, then sank below the surface, pulling the boy down with him. Woo kicked and thrashed, tried to yank away, but he could not. As dog and boy both sank deeper, Delilah felt tears upon her own cheeks. She was awful. She was awful. 98%, Teddy said. Sensational. That's enough. Come with me. Despite his encouraging words, Delilah sensed he was in a hurry to get... Despite his encouraging words, Delilah sensed he was in a hurry to get out of there. Teddy stepped through the conjured boundary, back into the reality that was Gabby's cell. Delilah followed, pausing only long enough to wipe her tears away, forgetting for a moment that they weren't real. She found herself in the cold cell. The dream curtain drew closed. Teddy looked at Delilah in a way he had not before. He was afraid. He was afraid of her. That was impressive, he said, his confidence returning quickly, as if the knowledge Delilah could not leave this place reassured him of his position in the world. Adding Franks was a nice touch. It didn't help the It didn't get the Radu girl's numbers up high enough, though. And here it was, the final moment. Rule number 4. Their weakness is your gift. Use it against them without mercy. Teddy's weakness was that he needed to be the smartest person. He needed to control everything. He needed decisions to be his. I need more time with the Radu girl, Delilah said. I will get the numbers up. Don't ransom her. I want her here. Delilah saw Teddy's carriage change, saw his growing irritation. She's taking up space, he said. With your ability, I can get another in this cell that will produce in the higher percentile. I forbid it, Delilah said. I can make this work. I know Haimana will agree with me. The Radu girl stays. A blur of motion, and Teddy's hand was on her neck, squeezing, lifting. Delilah forgot all about strategy, about manipulating this man. She had no thoughts at all other than breathing, other than getting away. You seem to forget who works for who, Teddy said. I own you, little rich girl. Delilah's fingers struck, clawing at the hand around her neck. Sharp, hard, coffin nails dug into flesh. She flew through the air, her back slamming into the stone wall. She fell to the floor, choking, gasping. To be grabbed like that. Even when Agnetha had wrapped her up in a centipede arm, even when Jimena and Teddy had taken Delilah from her home, she hadn't felt deep, reactive terror like that. Teddy's hand on her neck, so strong, so angry. She had no doubt he could have killed her with one violent squeeze. Watch how you speak to me, Teddy said. Next time, I'll leave you alone with Agnetha for a discipline session. I hear centipede venom is quite painful. Do you understand? Delilah looked at him. Blood flowed in rivulets from his left hand, dripped down to the floor. She had cut him. She tried to force out the word sorry, but her throat wouldn't let her. A mistake. A mistake. She had made a terrible mistake. She had pushed him too far. Teddy Two Fingers opened the cell door. Finish your rounds, little foreman. Finish your rounds. That was episode 64. We'll be back with episode 65 next week. You're all awesome. Good day, sir. I got through it. Woo! Baby girl, whenever you're ready, come on up. Come on up. She's downstairs. Come on up. Be on the second floor. Come on up. Woo! That was fun. I was fighting a cough through most of that. And God, I got it. One of these days I'm going to learn when I want to do a gravelly voice to choose a different kind of gravelly voice. Teddy's voice is just straight up murder. Delightful oxygen and air flowing in to caress my sweaty body. Oh, there's some swampiness going on, y'all. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, it's getting real. And that is 5 episodes. Wait, I gotta do the math. 6 episodes left. Don't want to hear a word out of you, Daniel Baker, PhD. Some of us don't have the math gene. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mike. Richard, Delilah is playing with fire. She got a little slack in the noose, and she's playing with it. And you know what they say? Slack. If you play with it too much, it'll fall off. Hello, darling. Wow. Oh my God, is that scotch for me?
Yes. No.
Thank you, pumpkin. Work. Thank you. Oop. There we go. All right. Let's see. We're gonna get this camera set up first of all. We gotta remember how to do this. Oh, I forgot this part right here. And we'll adjust your color as we go, sweetheart. A little bit washed out. We get the chat over here. Actually, we need to leave chat here for this thing right there. And then this right here. Ladies and gentlemen, look who it is. This way? Toward me?
Yeah. So
gotcha. I was trying to position the mouse pad. You know how I do.
I know. That's more important. All right.
And turn that off. Yes, actually, preposterous hippopotamus is 100% right. What came off there, sweetie? That's just a tag. That's okay.
Oh.
I ain't gonna hurt nothing. Did we? Oh, I hit the wrong. Boom. Preposterous hippopotamus is right. I will tell you right now, to give you guys a heads up, that episode 69 is the finale. And then episode 70 is the epilogue and the setup for season Trace. So let me get camera set up. Talk to these people whenever you want to talk to them, baby girl.
Do I have? I can't talk to him yet.
Oh, for God's sakes.
No, that's-
you need a partner who knows what he's doing. Jiminy Christmas. I mean. We gotta try. I'm trying hard to get Bengals back in this season.
Yeah. Ooh, you guys, I don't know. I think you did great with your head cold.
Thanks, doll.
Scott went to band practice on Sunday and came home, obviously, with a little alien inside his chest burster, alien inside his chest, trying to get out right through his sternum or his nose. One or the other.
That is
right
incorrect. Yeah, that it was. I got through practice. I got through rehearsal. Oh, there we go.
Oh, well, that's a little a lot.
70s. Let's go, 70s. What's up, bitches? Right cam and then aperture priority. But you know what? That looks great. We're going with that. Just a touch more contrast in that bad boy. There we go. How's that look, sweetheart?
Good. I think it looks fine.
I'm totally washed out to beat the band.
So, as I always do, I left my script downstairs. So we have to start the deep cuts section of
We will in a
the
second.
day.
Let's go over the schedule of the stank. First of all, coming up next month, I got the thing updated, July 6th. Steve the Iceberg Rickyberg hosts a Monster Junkies party. Get yourself a beverage. Come hang out. It's a Zoom. I know you probably Zoom all the time, but you're not Zooming with junkies. You can Zoom with junkies, hang out, and do your own thing.
And I will be honest, that is the first day of the Sigler Auto Writing Retreat, so I am not sure that I will join, but it's also the first day of the Sigler Auto Writing Retreat, and they're very much
We got plans.
on the first day, so I may join because they will be completely desperately ignoring me.
That's her polite way of saying Scott and Rob are total spazzes and always have been and always will be. Don't forget, if you're not signed up for our SMS text messages, just text SIGTEXT to 855-955-5095. Get 10% off anything you want to buy that we ship. We can't help you out with the Amazon stuff. That's not my problem. And then, of course, scottsigler.com/newsletter to get our newsletter. And we got another one coming up pretty soon. You guys should be signed up for all that stuff because we're finding that Facebook is absolutely cratering. It continues cratering.
It's weird. Facebook is cratering. You love Threads. I don't quite understand Threads yet, but I think there's a lot of people on both sides of this. Like some people really love it like Scott does, and some people don't quite get it like I do. But I'll say Facebook engagement is weird again for the millionth time. Threads, I don't understand. TikTok has now shifted to their shop and live. So the best way, if you desperately don't want to miss out on the newest story or the newest news, is to sign up for the newsletter. Can you show them that again?
Yeah, I'll show them the newsletter. And then keep talking for a sec, sweetie. I forgot to set something up here. Got to go to main.
There you go. So that's the newsletter.
So we should go.
I will say, while you're setting that up, we had a glitch in our matrix. A lot of you guys were very kind to us and emailed or reached out in the Sigler Junkies and on Facebook directly to us on Sunday. There was a little bit of a delay in getting the Sunday episode up and posted.
That's totally not true.
It was not true.
We have never missed a Sunday ever. It's totally not true.
But there are also a handful of you who also recognize that this weekend was the first anniversary of Ice Pick's death, our good friend, Bruce Press. And I love that you guys gave us grace, but it was a glitch in the matrix. It totally didn't happen.
Yes. Moving on from that, let's go to the schedule of the stank. Then we're going to dive into our deep cuts, fun deep cuts today, I think. Let's see. I am currently working on Crypt Book 2, first draft, about over halfway through with it. It's starting to get pretty cool. Sunday, June 9th, which is in the past, Slay 64, the foreman, went live in the field. That's kind of the beginning of Delilah's ministrations and manipulations, which she just bit off more than she can chew. She's finding out that some people are just mean. And then Wednesday, June 19th, we'll be back for Slices live read, like you were listening here. Slay 65, Gabriella is the name of the episode. We don't know what our topic for Deep Cuts will be next week.
Well, we're about to find out with you guys.
We're going to figure it out tonight. All right. And the Slay audiobook has been submitted to Audible. We hope it'll be live by the end of June, but we don't know for sure.
Oh, so, I did it again. I did it again with I met this guy, but yeah, so that's still true. He did that last weekend.
So save that credit, and when it comes out, we will have full instructions on how to buy the book, what they call a la carte. You don't have to have an Audible subscription, or how to get it free as part of a 30-day no-risk trial for Audible, and keep it. We're going to cover you no matter what your financial situation is, but if you got the money to buy that book, or you got a credit, we want you to use it.
Yep, and as ever, there is what we call the Sigler Guardian Angel Fund, which still exists. It used to exist to fund people going to Sigler Fest. It still exists. So if you're a Sigler junkie who can't quite engage in the run-on sleigh when it comes out, whenever it comes out at the end of the month or so-ish, but you want to, you can reach out and say, are there any guardian angels? Because there are, and if you can't buy it yourself, somebody can help you buy it or gift it to you, and you can join the fun and have all the things as well. And that way you can leave reviews and join the fun of the spoiler group and all that stuff.
Yeah. All right, time to roll in deep cuts. We've got canned stuff here until we get used to it. Time to slash our way into... Wait, that's you.
I did leave it downstairs.
Just read that. Just read it straight.
Oh, it's time to slash our way. Oh, no, I have to read it straight. I'm so sorry.
You can read this. You read any way you want. We're not recording this part.
Okay. It's time to slash our way into Deep Cuts, the bonus episode podcast we do each week. You can hear these episodes at scottsigler.com or in your podcast feed if you're subscribed on iTunes or Spotify, which you can do at scottsigler.com/subscribe.
That's right. Now, ready to set that timer?
Well, I got to get my thingy.
Get your thing. That's what I'm always doing.
Nope, that's not how girls work. I got the timer. It's right here. Let's hit the thing. Like whenever you're done, I'll hit the timer.
And say ready. Go ahead. Hit it. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices Fiction Podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss all the hot topics you can't find in them all. I'm Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author known far and wide as the future Dark Overlord.
And I am A.B. Sigler, also known as audiobook narrator A.B. Kovacs. And on this Deep Cuts, we talk about how Scott tracks his many story ideas and how his tracking methods have changed in the 4 decades since he started jotting down his very first idea.
And we're going to get into this. And as always, we're taking questions from the chat room. If you guys are listening to this podcast after the fact, we do a live stream every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We got wonderful junkies just like you hanging out in the chat room, asking us questions. We usually respond, except, some of them we don't respond to because they're untoward. But you guys can join us for this live every Wednesday, or you can just listen to it after the fact. Let's get into the concept of how I have tracked my ideas.
Yeah, so this was a thing that sort of organically came out of the last handful of Deep Cuts. We had been talking about Scott grew up as a D&D dungeon master and how that influenced his fiction writing. And one of the things that it did, from my perspective, is I see... we have something called the Sigler Story Idea Database. It first was in Bento Box on Apple when we first met and started working together in 2008.
Yeah, I forgot about.
Or Bento. It was just called Bento.
Let's come to that in a minute.
Hang on.
Oh.
But before that, even, it was just in a notebook that Scott managed and lived with most of his life, so he didn't forget ideas. What I know about this is Scott revisits little pieces of stories and they come and go. So now they're well organized. So these are story ideas that quite literally have spanned Scott's entire writerly existence. Some have been with him since he was, I think, in maybe not elementary school, maybe high school when you were starting to DM. Because some of that stuff is what happened with what we talked about last week with the D&D and the Champions modules and stuff. But some of them have come and gone and reiterated into other things. And so we're going to talk about that and pull back the curtain a little bit and show you what it looks like when Scott is deciding to write something new. And it comes out in a couple of ways. You guys probably listening now.
We actually can jump in the Wayback Machine.
Okay.
You want to jump in the Wayback Machine?
I do.
Wayback Machine. You got to do this. Now bring hands up to the camera. Bring hands up to the camera. Block the view. Oh, sorry, guys at home. Here we go. I've jumped the Wayback Machine, and I have recovered a present from my mother freshman year of high school.
A motherboard?
This is a motherboard.
Is it 2 motherboards?
It's a motherboard used to make a notebook. And I don't know if Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD, remembers this.
It's absolutely a motherboard.
Careful, that's duct tape, so be careful.
But you can see, I don't know if you can, but you can see those, I can see
you guys through it. It's the coolest thing. Someday I'm going to have to get this changed. I'm going to have to get this changed so I can make it the covers of a 3-ring binder because this is just the sickness.
Hold that up so I can take a picture through the screen and show everybody. I'll have to post it tomorrow, but.
Right, bring it up closer. There we go. Yeah, like that. That's perfect.
Yeah,
good job.
You can see through that motherboard.
Okay, so those of you listening at home, this is an 8.5 by 11 notebook made at probably some kind of craft fair, which is made. The front and back covers are manufactured by IBM This is
Was it a composition notebook maybe?
probably a composition notebook. Now, what else, so those of you who can't see, is this has been around for so long, I had to use duct tape, which works in everything, on the spine as well. It's covered with duct tape because this is what I started to track my stories on. And Carol, my mom, being the awesome mom that she is, knew she had to find something that was unique and like tactile and special. Because a regular notebook, I'd already lost hundreds of them at that point. So she's like, she knew I wanted to be a writer. So this is, oh my God, this is Story Idea Journal, Scott Ziegler, 333 Jackson Plaza Road. Oh my God, this has my high school address on it.
Wait, so do you know your high school address? Was it Jackson Road?
No, that was a later Ann Arbor address.
Do you have a date here?
No, there's no date. But look at the coffee stains.
Look at the coffee stains.
Yes, this is some serious Hemingway shit.
I was a huge, I'm a Gen Xer, so I was a huge Squeeze fan in high school. And there's a Black Coffee in Bed, which talks about coffee stains in your notebook. So I'm very excited about
this was actually a company. It was called CompuNotes by Paris. Paris was the company. And the first entry in the story journal was one called Sentience. And the only tagline is, "We are not the only intelligent species." Here we go. This is the story idea. Here we go. Birds have highly developed language centers. Song is learned, not instinctive, very similar to us. Location. It would have to be somewhere isolated, obviously. Lots of resources, rainforest, island. And then at the bottom it says, sounds too much like Congo due to location. But the idea with that, which eventually became a different story, which I still haven't written, which we're going to hopefully find in the idea database.
Hopefully.
But this thing was just chock full of some role-playing stuff.
It's pretty full. Every time he had a new idea, he did a good thing. Even if he wasn't done writing a full page, he was smart. You can sort of see it. I'm not going to have him hold it up, but you can see, like, there are pages that have writing on them, full, the whole thing, like you can see it from here. And then there are some that only have like a word or two up at the top, but he's left the rest blank. So as he comes back to that idea, he can add more information to it. And this is before computer age. This is before he can do this in I remember this story. I'm going to go back to that database and add some notes.
Yep. There's Earth core notes in here.
Not a thumbs up.
And here we go. Some infection notes.
Infection notes.
Hearing connection pattern, a reference to a book called Human Mind, page 96. Auditory signals go from pressure waves in the air to vibrations in solids of eardrums to pressure ripples in cochlear fluid to motion in organ of chordae, I think, to electrical nerve signals. Signals hit the vestibular cochlear nerve. Vestibular cochlear nerve is the 8th cranial nerve, direct connection of auditory nerve impulses to brain. So those of you who've read my novel Infection, those are
Infected. The novel that came out was called Infected.
The super early notes on Infected. So this was originally how I did this. Now, if you're listening to this because you're a creator and you want to know how to keep track of your ideas, we're going to move on to the computer stuff in a second here, but having some kind of talismanic hardcover notebook that looks different and that you actually enjoy picking it up and touching it. I've got a shit ton of these note cards here. I lose them all the time.
Where's the lucite box?
The lucite box would be...
We'll find that in a second.
I don't know.
We'll find it in a second. But Scott kind of has a temporary solution too, and I have to show them kind of from the back. But these are current active ideas that he's trying to keep track of it in his head, and sometimes it helps to put them down temporarily here, and then they eventually become something like this, or something like a database, or something like a story.
So if you're listening to this, you're trying to find an idea, and you don't want something computer based. Again, find a really, really, really special notebook that doesn't look like other things, that actually brings you joy to pick it up and handle it. So that could be leather, could be embossed, could be wood, anything is just not normal. And you probably will be less likely to lose it. And you'll also be more likely to engage with it and actually use the thing to write down stuff. And that's what you're after when you're trying to hold on to your ideas.
And I will say, as a creative adjacent, a non-creator, this book that Scott just put away, which has the motherboards as the cover, is the one book that came into our home together in the last 5 years, 4 years, whatever, that I cannot store myself to protect he has to keep. I have all of his clippings from. He was featured in the New York Times in 2008. He was in Fangoria. He was in Time. He was in all these magazines in 2007, 8, 9 for his books, and all of those are in an acid-free storage container that I manage. We have shown you many books. We've shown you all the last week and the week before. We showed you the Sigard Archdiocese and the Champions books. I manage those. Those belong to me. I take care of those in our house. That one he won't let out of this room.
No,
because that is that has been important enough to him the whole time since he was a teenager. And he will manage that himself. And when you find a thing like that, I think as a creative, you'll never forget it. He never takes it out of this room. He never takes it to a coffee shop to have a coffee and write some notes down. He never takes it to a bar to have an evening writing or whatever.
Right.
It is very important to him. That's how it is if you're a writer, I think.
So we're going to get to the database angle in a second, but A pointed out, now those of you listening at home, this is a clear lucite box that is set up for 3x5 index cards with little tabs in it. So as I jot things down on index cards, I find index cards, those are too big for it.
Well, I know,
I find index cards to be super, super useful to do things, but I lose the card. Go ahead and show them.
What's important, no, it's a combo thing because he prefers 4x6 index cards that are temporary things he wants to remember and make sure he remembers long term. They are not this size. Because
she's showing the lucite box with the 3x5 index cards.
3x5, because if it lasts long enough that it has to be transcribed into a longer term memory thing, this is a way that he makes sure he doesn't transcribe transient ideas and doesn't hold on to not the long-term ideas, but he also makes sure he keeps everything. I'll also mention for anybody who is a fan of Scott's or is a writer who may or may not have ADHD, the lucite box is a new addition in the last 12 months, I'd say. He's had many storage boxes. We have a whole black metal storage crate right here. But the lucite box helps him remember that they're there because seeing something in a first generation retrievability way for people who have ADHD is good because he will remember. I don't know if we can show what this says. Yeah, I can show that, right?
Yeah.
This front of the box right here, I don't know if you can see, just says to-dos, and it sits visible to him. So he might not see the box when he first gets to work, but if he turns around to grab water or an index card or something behind him, he'll see that it says to-dos right here, and then he'll look through it.
The way
and
this
it actually helps.
What worked really good is I have a section in the back called blanks. There's a tab, so if I need an index card, I have to go into the index card container that holds all my ideas, get out a blank one, put it down. What that does, it visually and mentally reconnects me with like the stuff that's in it. For example, here's a whole bunch of cards for Slay that I'll bring with me to Sheboygan to write with Rob. Here is super weapon stuff for my band, Warpath, stuff to do for the website, Shakedown, Realm, which is our podcast partner, all of this stuff. So the constant going over it, because as someone who's got ADHD pretty big, I have this thing called object permanence or impermanence.
Yep. Well, object permanence is what you have. Object permanence, but that's the shortcut.
Explain how
phrase.
I screwed up.
So humans have object permanence. You know, if you close your eyes right here and you still hear my voice, that when you open your eyes, you will see the same thing you currently were seeing before you closed your eyes. You know I'm out here, but I'm visually on your computer. That's object permanence. We learned that somewhere between 6 months and 18 months, or maybe 2 years. I don't really know. I don't have kids, but you learn it young. There's a shortcut in ADHD language that says sometimes people with hyperactive ADHD, which Scott has, sometimes you lack object permanence. If you don't see it in front of you, you forget about it. Now, I will say, Scott never forgets that I exist. I'm important in his life, and he never forgets that I exist. If I'm downstairs, he doesn't forget I exist. It's unfair to call that object impermanence. He knows I'm there. But as a shorthand, that's a real thing that people with ADHD deal with, that if it's not first order retrievable, if it's not, you look at it with your eyes and see it, sometimes you forget about it for a week, a day, a month, a year, whatever, and then you'll come back to it like, whatever happened with that idea?
Yeah.
There's like, yeah, you talked about it for 3 days and then you never talked
and then
about it again.
I'll get the idea, then I'll write down a bunch of stuff, and then I'll lose the notes, and all I'll know is I have like this just hollow feeling like that was a really good idea, and I try to get the stuff back, and it's, if I don't write it down, it's gone. So anybody listening, if you are ADHD or know people are ADHD, and a lot of creatives are, a lot of creatives have this bit of a handicap going. We're going through a couple of different systems you can have. So the talismanic treasure-like notebook, the one that's really, really nice that you treat yourself. Get yourself a notebook that you're
100%.
not going to lose. And then, or note cards with a place to keep the note cards. They're not just scattered all over the place. And now we're ready to move into the computer stuff.
Yes. So Scott and I started working together in 2008. Obviously, the internet age was already there, was already existing. However, there has been a big change, a big seismic shift in recognizing that different minds plug into the internet differently. If you guys watch us, you'll know Scott's much more social media active than I am. I interact kind of on Wednesdays for you guys. I don't care about social media. It doesn't plug into my brain. It does for him. He loves it. I am good at helping him remember things he wants to remember. And if it's for our business, it is important to me too. So that's how we eventually developed what we'll call the Sigler Story Database, and we're about to show you.
Yeah.
You want to take over?
Yeah. Originally, way back when, and this would be in the 90s, I had a FileMaker Pro database. And I was working for a computer company at the time. We used FileMaker Pro to make things. So I started coming up with the story ideas and did it in FileMaker Pro. And that lasted for... Oh, you know what? We're going to tell you about FileMaker Pro in just a second, and Bento and other things, and what we're using now, which is Linux, right after we take this short, sweet commercial break. And we're back. Hello. We're back to the show. So this started out in the 90s, and FileMaker Pro was, I believe, the first database program I'm aware of that had a nice user interface, and you could customize fields, and you didn't need to know deep coding to do this. You could just say, I want this field to say this, I want to put this field here, and you basically make up your own database and your own spreadsheet. Started tracking my stories in that. Eventually, FileMaker Pro got too expensive, and it got too complicated, so then they came out with another one called Bento. And Bento
was Apple specific.
Was it Apple specific? Bento was a stripped down version, but it worked just fine for what I did. So then I had a Bento database for quite some time, and then Bento got sunsetted at some point, and I moved over to what we now use. We had to find a replacement for Bento, and the replacement is Ninix.
It is called the Ninix database, Ninox, or maybe Ninnox. We legitimately cannot say it.
I've watched Caddyshack too many times.
We can't either one of us. Like if I come up and I say, "Hey, can you export the Ninix database for me?" and I'm speaking to him as I'm bringing him lunch or something upstairs in this room where he spends most of his writing time. I will come upstairs and I'll be like, "Hey, here, I made us both French bread pizzas for lunch, and can you export the Ninix database?"
Joe Carlson in the house. Joe Carlson in the house. Hello, Joe. I also miss FileMaker Pro. And Daryl Harris in the chat room says
he still uses it. Yeah.
I don't know why I went over for FileMaker Pro, Daryl. All I know is that it had to be done because I don't like change.
Scroll is right. We are the knights who say Ninix.
It's Caddyshack and the knights who say Ninix. The same thing. All right. So now we're going to get into. Fortunately, those of you listening at home, I'll describe this as best I can. We're going to show you how I actually use the database and the ideas. Yes, Dal.
I have a spoiler alert or a content warning before I show you this. He is actually going to show you a screenshot. He's going to show you on this screen a screenshot of our active Ninix database. I'm telling you, if you email us or ask about what these things mean, all these names that you don't understand, that you've never heard of, that we've never talked about in public or at Siglerfest, we're not going to go into it with you. Because some of them quite literally are just the title. And some of them are very narrow and shallow, and some of them are very narrow and deep. And some of them are very wide and shallow, and some of them are very wide and deep. So we're not going to talk about many of them that you haven't heard of, but we probably might look at a few that you have heard of. But don't get excited.
Hold on. I got to look up. Keep talking for 1 second.
Okay. I'm not sure what the phrasing was about, but I'm sure it was me, and now I'm embarrassed and I'm getting red.
All right. So we are going to talk about, we're going to use one example of the story database because no one believes me when I tell them this. It's a story I can't write anymore because somebody else had the idea. So really briefly, you get an idea, and it's possible as a creator, you got that idea from other influences that were out in the air. Even though it's your idea, you didn't get it from somebody else, doesn't mean other people don't have a similar idea cooking somewhere in the world. If I go back to when podcast novels began, there was T. Morris, Mark Jeffrey, and me all doing the same thing at the same time without any connection with each other. All three of us kind of invented the concept separate from one another, which creates a huge amount of stress in a person like me. Because that's why every time I get a good idea, I'm like, we got to do this now. We got to do this now. And when I get to our example of why I got to do it now, you will understand. So let's go ahead and go to books. And then we go, oops.
Okay. Jen Hathorne said, stop screen grabbing.
So we're going to now show you the database. This is Linux. Now, I don't know if those who are watching live can see this, or those who are watching the video replay can see this, but what we have here is Linux is a basic database program. And what I'm going to show you is, we're going to go into this one right here. So when I get the idea, I write it down, and I put as much information as I can.
Yep.
This idea, which I wrote in October 5th, 2005, was called He Killed My Dog. Can you read this, babe? Because my eyes are crap.
And I will say, if you guys are looking at this, you'll see it actually says 2011, but this is when we had to convert from Bento.
No, it keeps the file.
Well, it says created 2011.
Yes.
But you said 2005.
This is created in 2011.
Oh, okay.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just making
I
okay.
misspoke. I misspoke.
So this is the working title of this story that he put in 2011 is called He Killed My Dog. The description that he put in is son of a mafia don, does a B&E, kills the homeowner and his dog. Homeowner comes to an Italian restaurant the next day. It's the mob HQ, demanding the son's head. Maybe he didn't kill him. Guy wants payback for the dog. Don has the guy beat up and tosses him. Next day, Guy is back. Don sends 2 thugs to kill him. Thugs don't return. Next day, Guy is back. Don has him hit. Next day, Guy is back.
With a hole. Oh, that's not a hole, that's a hole.
With a hole in his head. He's a zombie. He starts to kill the Don's men one by one. Don has to make the call, his son or himself.
That was 2011, 3 years before John Wick came out. I thought it was the coolest idea, because you know what they don't do in Hollywood? They don't let the good guy's dog die. They don't do it very often. And after Chuck Norris movies, of course.
Yep.
And then when John Wick came out, I was like, God damn it.
And you guys can see,
damn it.
if you look on the screen, and if you guys are listening only, you can go watch this on YouTube. You can watch the video playback on this on YouTube or Facebook
artificial
or whatever.
10 experience points for artificial selection in the chat room. He goes, Zomwick. Well done. Well done.
Obviously, this is not the John Wick storyline. John Wick does not come back as a zombie. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen John Wick. That said, this is an unsellable story in Hollywood in 2024. It's an unsellable story. It's done.
It was meant to be like a longer short, so like a mid novella. It would have been great, but so that's just an example to show you guys. I had this idea, and now I can't write it.
And of course, we see all the time. You guys email all the time, like, "Have you watched this? It's very similar to this other story."
All the time.
And this is how that happens. Like, this was a story that Scott thought up in 2011. That for the first 3 quarters of that description sounds like John Wick.
Yep.
And then it absolutely does not. But it also precludes He Killed My Dog from becoming any kind of a short story or production that doesn't reference John Wick.
And we got a couple comments from the chat room. Joe Carl says, John Wick 5, who knows? And Rob Otto, John Wick doesn't come back as a zombie yet. Yeah. So now, the people watching at home or the people watching the replay can see this live. We are going to walk through how I set this up, how I do this. So this database is very simple columns, date created, which is automatic, working title, which I put down just to remember it. If it goes into one of our short story collections, I add that. And then I have format, and formats include short story, novel or novella, novel, screenplay, teleplay, etc.
You also have like long story and medium story. So long story is now novella.
Novella, yeah.
Yeah, but it used to be short, medium, and long story. But in Linux, it's now short, medium, and novella.
Yep.
And then story idea or the story or the series that it goes to.
If it gets published, we put it in the series. Or if it's slated, like we got a bunch that are slated for Rot is Black, which is our next short story collection. publish date, and I've fallen off on a lot of stuff. Like I've stopped going in and putting the publish date and everything. And then genre, and then there's an ID which is automatically signed, and a date last modified. That gets screwed up all the time. If you move it to a new computer, it's always last modified. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can go to record, create new record.
Oh, Lord.
It won't let me do it. Okay. So here's another. We'll just go into it. This one I called Never Was. This is before, I think before Neil Gaiman had one called Never Was.
Okay.
Originally came up with this in October 22nd, 2012. It was a good year for creativity. And so the idea is, so you don't lose the information. You get, a lot of times I just get a title. Mm-hmm. So I want to go on and create a new record. I want to make sure I get the title entered, and then I have the date created, and it'll track date modified. And then I have a field which is called Siglerverse. Is this a Siglerverse story or not? This one is not, so I put in a no. There's a genre, a format, and status. Format for this happened to be short story. Status was idea only. Length, if I have a projected length, I will enter that there.
We should correct that typo for length.
Which one?
The one that says, look.
Oh, that's, well, I'd have to edit the database for that. And I'm like, no, it stays. It stays the way it is.
Well, that's, in Siglerverse, it's
Length. And then in description, I basically put down whatever description I can think of. And then at the bottom of this description says, need to change title. There was an Aaron Eckhart movie called Never Was, which turns, I think was a Neil Gaiman story. I don't know. But the point is, to sum this up, when I get an idea, I'll probably write it down on a card or write it down the back of a napkin or whatever. Initially, I would get that home, and then I would call this program up and enter it. But Linux has an app. So on my phone, I have the same database. I can be at a bar, having beers with a super hot redhead. I can get an idea, which happens pretty much every time we go out. I get a story idea. Pull out the phone and just enter it. Get it before you forget it. We got some funny in the chat room.
Dan Baker on Facebook is making. Okay, so in the Linux database, length has a transcription or transposing of letters, and so it's length to short.
Listen, spelling is not my problem. There's automatic applications that spell things. You can all just kiss my ass. Now the last thing we'll talk about it is. You know what? I'm not showing you guys any of this because you're all going to steal my ideas. That's the way it goes.
So I will.
But here's all the stories in Death is Blood. We got a mark. This is Death in Blackest collection. The bones are white. The blood is red stuff. Right now, we did a clear out on this not too long ago. It's 205 entries. So there's probably 150 things in this database that I have not yet written.
So now that we're not on the database, and I don't want you to go and find it because it's important that you don't go and find it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So there is a story that I'm going to ask you about, Scott, that you are not going to look up and show everyone, called The Band. That, Scott, I'm going to say, I think it was at least 2014 because I think he was Reese was new. Reese came home in June of 2024. He and Reese lived downtown together, and Reese was about 7 months old, and Scott would have to walk her late at night because she was a puppy, so she peed every 2 hours. So he would go out all hours of the night.
Such a good dog.
And people would come up because he lived downtown in San Diego. So even at like 10 p.m. or midnight or 2 a.m. when people were getting out of bars and clubs, of course, everybody loved Reese, but all the club girls loved Reese.
Club girls loved Reese, buddy. Loved him.
And he kept saying, like, last night I felt like a rock star. I mean, Reese was the rock star, but I felt like a rock star because everybody came up to us. And he wrote a kind of a Linux database pitch for something called The Band. And The Band, again, you're not calling it up. The Band, today in 2024, 10 years later, exists as at least a short story, if not the first 15,000 words of a novella, because
first 3 chapters are done.
Yeah, because it kept digging at his mind, so he would go out and walk the dog, and more like fan experiences would happen, where new people would meet Reese, and Reese, when she was 7 months old, was the business. She was the cutest chick magnet that ever existed.
She would stretch toward them, and then she would do the stretch and like play bow in front of them, and like you could see it a mile away. Any person that made eye contact with her, the next word out of their mouth would be like, "Oh."
And the second thing they did, because I walked her a bunch too, but I walked her during the daytime when people were sober, would be to look up at me. To be like, can I engage with you more so that I can see more of Reese? Because she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I think at night, at midnight or 2 a.m. or whatever, that was very much like a groupie scenario where like people would be coming out of a bar or something and they would be like, oh, and they would engage with that. And so the band has 3 chapters that work, that have very much to do with the idea of a band on tour, which is nothing at all about what the band, the story
so
is
cool.
about. It's
gotta get
very
back to
cool.
it.
That's why I don't want you to show it, because
Okay.
I do think that we're going to get to it. But there's already 3 chapters written about this story, but it's we can't add it to the rotation yet, which is what that there was a little cube there that says, is it on the schedule for writing? Because we visit this a couple of times a year and look at it and say like, okay, what's coming next? And we're pretty flushed out for 2024
We are.
and most of 2025, but this is what's going to happen next.
We are cornholed for 2024. That's the only way to put it. And I'm talking about the game, of course. We throw the bean bag into the hole. We're cornholed for 2024.
Yes, that.
All right, let's sum it up for all of you listening at home. Step 1, if you want to keep track of your ideas as a creative, regardless of what it is you create, you probably have ideas flying through your mind all the time. Anyone can have an idea. The trick is to hold the idea. Step 1, if you are a tactile pen and paper person, find a unique, special notebook, something that you just flat out think is fucking cool. It's got to be something that every time you pick it up, you're like, I'm so glad I bought this. This is so dope. I love it. And then that you probably will not lose it. And just go 1 page per idea. And when you fill it up, go get another one. I have 2 of those circuit board things. That's a really good way to keep track of things to start with. Step 2, I think, if your ideas come fast and furious and they're a bit more bifurcated and fragmented, 3x5 note cards. Find a little clear container to put those note cards in. Get the little tab separators that are 3x5 with a tab. And a label maker. A label maker is absolutely your buddy with ADHD. If you have ADHD, you get a label maker. Get it, and then you label the tabs. You put the cards in the tab. I try to date each card at the top. Here's the title of what I'm working on. Here's the date I'm writing this down. And that's a good way to sort of corral the ideas. You're not going to put a saddle on them and ride them, but you're going to get them in the corral at least.
And that gives you, it also creates like a funnel. If you write those down and you keep writing them or reintroducing that note card, eventually you'll find a way to track it, a database, a notebook, something where you do the long-term idea and you'll write it down. As a reminder, while Scott is typing, if you are using a paper and ink version, give yourself the grace of writing the story idea on the top of a page and the general gist, like the byline, the tagline, the elevator pitch right underneath it, and then leave the rest of that page blank in case that same joy, that same inspiration comes back to you again. You don't have to figure it out, cross it out, and go to a new page. Just trust yourself that you're that creative.
Yeah. If you have a notebook that's, say, got 100 pages, and there's 3 full pages and the other 97 are just a title and a date and a couple of notes, and you fill it up, awesome. Fireworks. We have fireworks in our video.
If you do a double thumbs up, you get fireworks.
If you fill up a notebook, go get another notebook, keep them together. That's totally fine. If you fill up your 3x5 index card container, you're probably going to want to start going through that and getting rid of the chaff. The point is, you can do those 2 things until you are ready to go in and get yourself a computer database. You need a customizable database so you can choose and define the fields, meaning you only see on the screen things that actually matter to you. I would not recommend buying a canned database. It's worth your time as a creative to go find a database program that you can enter your own fields into. Spend the time and learn how it works. All of the time you spend on that will come back to you 1,000-fold.
At least 1,000-fold. I will say, if you're an iOS user, if you're an Apple user, we really like Linux for its ability, for its price point and its manipulability for the sections. It is not as robust as some other things may be, but for us, the way that Scott writes is this is a holding pattern. This is a database that holds ideas before they become outlined, before they go into Scrivener, before they go into the real world and start to be worked on. And it's robust enough for that. He can keep adding notes to it, keep adding ideas to the description. He can keep adding things to that where he thinks it should be, if it might tie in with something else.
Yeah.
I will say one more thing for any of you who may be creatives who may or may not have ADHD, but creatives who the spigot of ideas never stops.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a saving grace for the both of us in this business, where I need to focus on the things we are doing as a business person, and he needs to still be creative and have the ability to not miss out on all these ideas. So don't be afraid to fill your database or or notebook or index cards or whatever. If you're writing one thing a year or one thing every 2 years, fill that database up with 80 things.
Sure.
It doesn't matter, because you don't know what's coming next. You don't know what your next inspiration will be to dig deep for.
And you don't know when you're going to get an opportunity. So when you get to my level in the writing world, I get solicited regularly for short stories. Like, hey, we're doing this anthology, or with this Magda, can you write a story for us? And what I've done many times, I just go back into the database. They want a story. Let me go through everything marked short story. Oh, look, I have this. This fits what they want. And then I get to bring out that idea and write the story for them. Mm-hmm. The other thing we have done this for several times in our career together as business partners is we get to the what's next phase. And we'll be like, all right, what do you want to write next? And we will go through the entire database, stuff we've already gone over 100 times, to see which idea pops out at this particular time, which thing can we write right now. And when we finish the current workload we have, we'll probably revisit this 2026. We're going to pull this out and be like, I want to write a standalone novel. Let's go through the database and see what we've got that I've been dying to write. And if I didn't have it in a database, it would be gone.
And I just saw the second from the bottom that
you put in. Third guy from the left.
Yeah, third guy. That is, you chose that for an anthology. Can you show that? Because that was August 14th, 2012. We will never publish it on our own, but it became a short story anthology piece that you did.
That was in the Weird Tales 100th Anniversary hardcover.
I think so, yeah.
Gorgeous book.
It's a gorgeous book, and it was a great story. And so, I guess the May 8th is what I was thinking of when you imported everything into Linux, was 2008.
Okay.
So that hasn't been updated, although that story exists in the universe. The third guy from the left on the blah, 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 blah at McTeague's bar.
Let me see if I can copy it. I think I just said the title is just Third Guy from the Left at McTeague's bar, which eventually became Third Guy from the Left on the bottom row of the picture over the urinal at McTeague's bar in San Francisco.
Yeah. And that short story exists, even though that line item that we just showed you in the database is completely blank except for the title and the date created.
Yeah.
And it still exists in the world. So it's worth saving those little bitty story ideas. As a creative adjacent, I will tell you, I believe it's worth it if you are a creative of any ilk to remember that.
Yep.
And remember it in a cohesive, catalogable way, because it helps pick your thumbnail back up and keep doing it. And obviously we need to update that in the database, but it doesn't matter because that story already exists.
So final sum up. If you are a paper person, get a pretty notebook, something that you really think is super cool. You can eventually move to note cards. Note cards require a little bit more organizational ability. You need to get something to contain them that you can see in. It can't be an opaque plastic thing you can't see through, because you're going to forget all about it. All of those are 100%. Training methods to get to a computer database, because the final thing we will talk about is backing up your database. If you have a database as a creative and you don't have it backed up to the cloud on Dropbox or Box or something like that, or iCloud, you are going to want to shoot yourself in the face with a bazooka. Learn how to use the database software, make your own database, learn how to back it up. If possible, learn how to automate backing it up and check your automations. You want to make sure that stuff is backed up 9 ways to Sunday.
And last thing I'll say is, once you set up an automation, the same day you set up an automation, you go to whatever calendar you use to schedule your life, we use Apple, whatever it is, whatever calendar reminder system you have, remember the milk things, whatever, and add, hey, have you checked the database at least every 6 months? And that will give you inspiration when you don't have story ideas, inspiration when you do have story ideas and you can't narrow it down. It's worth it. But you have to remind yourself.
All right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, now we are getting to, that is it for this episode of Deep Cuts. We don't have a shit. Okay, before, you know what? No, we have to tease for the next episode. Here we go. Real quick. Chat room, Blitzkrieg. What would you guys like to hear a novelist and an audiobook narrator talk about next week? We forgot to tease for next week.
Well, we did have a couple. You guys add anything you'd like in the chat room as we talk about it. We did have a couple of emails that came in. One asked to talk about a specific relationship between the audiobook narrator and the author, and wanted to know, like, do you get to choose your voiceover actor? Do you get to give them instruction? Do you get to direct? Do you get to be there? And how much you have to live with it? And I thought that might be interesting. But if you guys have any ideas...
Let's give it, we'll go 2 minutes. Here we go, 2 minutes. Anything you guys want to hear us talk about on the next episode of Scott Sigler Slice's Deep Cuts, pitter patter, let's get at it.
Let's get at it.
I did tell you one I wanted to do next week. Do you remember what it was?
No, but I'm sure I have it right.
Did you write it down? Okay. Oh, I remember what it was. When we have the Slay audiobook ready to go, we're going to go full capitalism, and we're going to talk about the difference between the Slay audiobook that will be an Audible and the Slay podcast that hopefully you guys have listened to, because there are significant differences, and we want your money. We want your fucking money.
Yeah, but that I think is going to be at the end. I don't think that's next week. Somebody emailed about looking at government cheese in caves in the United States, and that's very interesting. But right now we're sort of still in the industry, so we might talk about how becoming an audiobook narrator works, working with an author, because I can do that with him and with other people, and he can do that as an author with other narrators that he didn't get to choose but he has to work with. That might be a good place to go. We will maybe eventually talk about what it's like to go from a fan to a partner, but I think that's such a
great
unique
episode.
experience.
That's a great
we
episode.
can talk about that, but
I think about our meat story again. That's awesome.
We can do that, yeah, and I think we should. But I think next week we might talk, because people keep asking about how the audiobook narrator and the author work together, and if they do. So maybe we'll do that next week, because we're sort of talking about your origin story, and this may be our origin story and stuff like that. I will also say, you guys who have been following Sigler in Place and now Scott Sigler Slices and now Deep Cuts for a while, know that we are coming up on the summer writing retreat. And this year, we're just going to do it live.
Yeah,
we're bringing you with us. We're not pre-recording things.
Guess
we're going to do it real time.
The topic will be the writing retreat with Rob Otto as the in-house guest.
Maybe next week, or that might be the next.
No, we do that in Sheboygan, right?
Right. Yeah. So that might be a few weeks from now. So we're gonna, at least until we get through the writing retreat in Sheboygan, and that Deep Cuts and probably Slay will be real time with Rob Otto, which is awesome. Maybe next week we'll talk about the relationship. We'll start with how a narrator, how an author engages with audiobooks, especially how it's changed over the years.
I think that's an excellent topic, because like I've got several people I've worked with over the years, and my process of interacting with the narrators has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
So
and
that's a good one.
And me as a narrator, we'll talk about that too, because the way I got into this business was crazy.
We're going to do that one later. Mm-hmm.
Yep. But thank you guys for all of that. Thank you guys, everybody who emailed in ideas after the fact. If you have an idea, if you're listening to this when we're not live and you have an idea you'd like us to talk about, please email it to info@emptysat.
Oh my God. You guys literally have programmed our show for the next fucking 2 months. I'm just going through the chat. You're all amazing. Yeah. I'm not going to identify anybody in particular. Apparently. You all do smell an awful lot. I'm going to have A go back through this too. But ladies and gentlemen,
we're going to go back and we're going to restart here, because we have to cut that off, and that'll be easier for me. So we're going to go. You guys live. Thank you for that.
That is it for this episode of Deep Cuts.
Next episode, we're going to talk about the relationship between an author and his audiobook.
What?
And potentially his audiobook.
That's a great idea. That's fantastic. So thanks for joining us. Y'all smell an awful lot like flowers. We'll be back next week.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. You're all fantastic. Let me go to Logic and just hit boom.
now we're with you guys live. Thank you for this. It makes it so much easier for me because right after you guys get off and go to bed, I record. I edit.
Literally on the script, A is supposed to say bye. Except she just waved goodbye. I'm like, but baby, for the audio, they can't hear you waving goodbye in the audio.
Bye.
So that's why I cracked up. And then my cough finally came out. But you guys are all fucking fantastic. Go ahead, baby.
So we are actually at 7:22, so we're probably going to let you guys on the live stream go as well now. We will be back next week to talk about, obviously, with Slay episode 65.
Wait,
right?
yep, Slay 65. Episode title is Ransom.
And we're done at 69, y'all. 69.
69. Yes. So now I believe we can tell them all kiss up on the sky.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Thank you guys so much for staying with us.
Hold
we love
on.
you so much.
I gotta switch to the sweet cam. Oh, god damn it.
Oh, I can lean in.
No, here we go.
No. What?
There we go. All right. Whatever. You can all kiss up in the sky. Good night. I'm going to go have a scotch. You guys are awesome.
Love you guys.